There was plenty of bed-hopping and risque romances of the time period. So it is no wonder that The Gilded Age Season 2 is going to have a scandal or two. Sonia Warfield, who writes the show alongside Julian Fellowes, told ABC Audio, quote, "Everything this season is bigger and better and more decadent. We really wanted to dive into the romance this season. There's love, there's heartbreak, and there is forbidden romance," she adds. So, what scandalous storylines from history might these show writers draw from? Here are two scandalous women of the Victorian era whose real-life stories could possibly have been combined by the show writers to create the new 2023 character, Susan Blane. Let me know in the comments if you think I am on the right track. First, we have Arabella Huntington, who, by the way, was portrayed as the shunned Mrs. Chamberlain in Season 1 of The Gilded Age. Arabella Yarrington was born in 1850 in a small town in New York. She grew up in a modest household, but her aspirations were far from modest. She knew that her future lay in the arms of older men. In 1869, at the tender age of 19, Arabella married her first husband, John Worsham, age 45, while living in Richmond, Virginia in a boarding house that sat next door to a gambling establishment. Turns out that Worsham was a bit of a deadbeat, and Arabella knew she had to do better. Along came Collis P. Huntington, an intrepid card player and wealthy businessman. Huntington had a wife named Elizabeth who, by all accounts, was plain and childless and living quietly in a mansion on New York's Park Avenue. Somehow, it is unclear exactly how, Arabella met the wealthy railroad magnate while he was staying at the Yarrington boarding home, and he was immediately struck by what was considered in that time period, her statuesque beauty. Well, all of a sudden, Worsham is out of the picture. Some say he already had a wife and deserted her, while other reports were that he died soon after Arabella had given birth to a son. Either way, Arabella was an unwed mother in need of a man with money, and Huntington fit the bill perfectly. Collis Huntington himself was from a poor and somewhat destitute background, and most likely was able to empathize with the plight of Arabella. So what did he do but decide to take Arabella back to New York with him to assist in the care of his ailing wife? History says that Huntington was gobsmacked in love with Arabella. As soon as his wife died of cancer, good old Collis married Arabella and made her an honest woman. But that wasn't good enough to bring her into the good graces of New York's high society.
Precisely.
The Astors and Vanderbilts barred the Huntingtons from New York society, and Arabella never did gain a foothold, but not to worry, they did just fine on their own. When Huntington died on August 13, 1900, Arabella is said to have inherited more than $50 million, and thus became the richest woman in America in the Gilded Age. Second, we have Victoria Woodhull, who was a staunch advocate for free love long before the 60s.
Yes, I am a free lover. I have an inalienable, constitutional, and natural right to love whom I may, to love as long or as short a period as I can, to change that love every day if I please, and with that right, neither you nor any law you can frame have any right to interfere.
From this speech, we can see that Victoria Woodhull advocated free love, and it wasn't just talk either. She practiced plenty of free love during the Gilded Age, as did her sister Tennessee Claflin. Victoria Woodhull also had connection to the Vanderbilts, not Alva and Willie directly, but to the family patriarch Cornelius Vanderbilt. During the time of the Gilded Age TV show circa 1882 and 1883, Victoria would have been full throttle into her free love period of her life. So I am making the assumption that Julian Fellowes came across the story of the two radical sisters in his research for the show. And Mrs. Blane. Well, we know what she wants her freedom for, don't we? I have to tell you that Victoria and Tennessee deserve their very own TV series or movie. Their lives are very interesting. They not only promote free love, but manage to get wealthy husbands vis-a-vis the Vanderbilt connection. But more on that in a further video that I plan to do on these fabulous women in history. So for now, let me give a brief account of Victoria Woodhull. Victoria Claflin Woodhull was born on September 23, 1838, in Homer, Ohio, at a time when the Victorian era's moral and social values held a tight grip on society. From an early age, Victoria exhibited a spirit of independence and a desire to challenge the constraints of her time. She had little formal education, but her innate intelligence and determination paved the way. Her family was made up of her father, considered to be a con man, and her religious fanatic mother who believed in spiritualism, and her sister, Tennessee. The two Claflin sisters were raised as child mediums, healers, and clairvoyants to earn money at tent revivals. In early adulthood, Victoria claims to have received a vision from one of her spirit guides promising that their lives would change for the better at a house on Great Jones Street in New York City. So what did the sisters do but move into a house at 17 Great Jones Street in 1868? Once in New York, they set their sights on one Cornelius Commodore Vanderbilt, a superstitious man who trusted mediums more than medical doctors, and who was still grieving for his first wife. Victoria hosted seances to give him business tips, while Tenny focused on magnetic healing and became his lover. Rumors circulated that he even asked her to marry him. Their connection to Cornelius was a boon to their ultimate success. Thanks to Vanderbilt's finances and influence, the sisters were able to take their next big step and enter high society. Their reputation as mediums and healers made them highly sought after by the elite of New York City. They even became known as the Queens of Wall Street when they started their own brokerage firm, becoming the first women to ever do so. But harkening back to Susan Blane in the HBO series who seeks her sexual freedom in Newport, Woodhull is a possible model for the Gilded Age character based upon the principles of free love that she so notably practiced, as well as promoted in her speech that day at Steinway Hall. Victoria Woodhull married 3 times, divorcing her first husband after he was unfaithful and later marrying a man named Colonel James Blood, who shared her beliefs in free love. Victoria and James not only had an open relationship, they also advocated for the rights of women in regards to marriage and divorce. They believed that women should have the freedom to leave unhappy or unfulfilling marriages and pursue their own happiness and sexual fulfillment. Victoria's personal practice of free love attracted a great deal of attention and controversy during the Gilded Age. Traditionalists and conservatives condemned her, accusing her of immorality and promiscuity. Many viewed her actions as a threat to the sanctity of marriage and the stability of the family unit. She faced intense scrutiny and backlash from the press, which labeled her as a loose woman and sought to undermine her credibility and political aspirations. Despite the criticism, Victoria remained steadfast in her beliefs and continued to promote free love throughout her life.